The cop shot Jacob Blake in the back for no apparent reason. And by the way, Jacob Blake was unarmed. He was helpless. They just pulled him out of a lineup and shot him because that's what America's like. Kamala Harris then jumped in and said she was, quote, proud of Jacob Blake, like he was a civil rights hero, like he was shot for being the wrong color, as so often happens in the systemically racist country.
So he was being sarcastic, but it certainly does happen in this systemically racist policing system. In fact, why don't we actually look at the data? It's readily available. Tucker Carlson works at Fox News. They have way more resources than we have. Maybe put a producer on that, right? If you actually genuinely care about getting facts to people, but of course he doesn't. So look at this graph. This graph specifically looks at the rate of police shootings in the United States between 2015 to October of 2021, and it's per capita based on per million of the population. The first bar in the graph represents black people getting shot and killed by cops, and it's 37 out of 1 million black people. Then you go to the second highest bar, and it's Hispanic. What a shocker, 28 out of 1 million. White is only 15. Now, I wanna get to a point where we minimize police shootings across the board, regardless of race, right? We want justice for all. We want people to have their day in court, even if they're suspected of a crime. But clearly, the numbers per capita prove that African Americans, black people, are disproportionately shot and killed by cops in America. So I just wanted to provide that context since Tucker Carlson couldn't be bothered to look for that and provide that in his analysis. Now, with that said, let's go to his disgusting comment regarding what should be done with protesters.
So this is what Kenosha looked like the night that Kyle Rittenhouse arrived to help defend local businesses. Well, that's not a civil rights protest. That's not people fighting back against oppression, systemic racism. That's just people destroying things they didn't build. That's people wrecking our civilization. In no normal country would that be allowed. It would be put down immediately with force. That's why we have police. You can't allow that, because if you do allow that, people get killed, as they did.
And it's just like, this dude's, it's not just that he's dumb, because he's not dumb, but you can tell he's just propagandizing everything. You can tell he doesn't really believe it. You can tell he's just putting on an act. But so many people believe it, and that's why he's such a danger to the country. And that's why we're seeing things like that happen in New York, people punching people in the face because they can't get vaccinated. I mean, I know a lot of people who, I'm cool with, and I follow this type of stuff for a living at this point, and they don't. And so they'll see stuff on Instagram and they'll ask me about it, like, what you think about this? I'll be like, bro, just stop getting your news from this type of stuff. And Fox News is no different or no better than memes on Instagram. Fox News is a meme on Instagram.
I think as a pro-life person, you say, what about the rights of the tens of millions of unborn babies that have been relentlessly under attack by the left for decades now? We are not talking about the same conversation that happened 40 years ago. Today's Democrats are advocating in many cases for the rights to have an abortion beyond the birth of the child. And most Americans would say that's not something that sits well with me.
That liar and lunatic is Cassie Smedel, who is the executive director of America Rising pro-Trump PAC. She's on Fox News. She should probably look into whether or not Donald Trump had some of his mistresses do abortions after he impregnated them. I don't know if that happened, but something you should look into, including all the Republican congressmen like Representative DeJarlais, who got his mistress pregnant, forced her to have an abortion, forced his wife to have an abortion as well, by the way.
Correction, 2 abortions for his wife.
Oh, 2 abortions for his wife.
So 3 overall. And Republicans
DeJarlais
reelected him.
Yeah, okay.
They don't believe in pro-life at all.
But the idea that the left wing in this country advocates for or supports abortions past the birth of the child is the most egregious, insane lie. In fact, if we actually want to be accurate, why don't we talk about all the children who die as a result of hunger, poverty, that results from austerity measures that Republicans have fought for tooth and nail to pleasure their corporate donors just so they can save a buck or two in taxes. Let's talk about that, bitch. You wanna talk about that? You wanna talk about how many homeless kids die on the streets in red states in this country? You wanna talk about how many right-wingers made wearing a mask during a contagious pandemic a culture war issue? Knowing full well that it put people's lives in danger and very likely spread the virus and killed people? You wanna talk about that, bitch? Anyway, others got heated on that panel, Cenk. So why don't we look at more of that video and then I'll give you an opportunity to jump in.
Yeah, because this doesn't pass the Smedel test. What she said is beyond absurd, but let's watch the rest and I'll tell you why.
I'm with Senator Durbin on this. I don't condone this leak whatsoever, and there should be an investigation, as I said, by the marshals into this. But to Cassie's point, I don't know of any serious leading Democrat, any real elected Democrat that supports abortion for a baby already delivered. That is extreme. That's murder in this country, and no Democrat supports that. I support fundamental limits on abortion in terms of well, which governor supports actual murder of a child delivered?
Former governor of Virginia. That was a big scandal you guys tried to push under the rug.
Which governor?
But to address Ralph Northam.
That's not true. That's not true.
Okay, well, there's a radio interview
that's actual murder, Cassie. But listen, I think the president and the vast majority of Americans fundamentally support the Roe decision, 50 years, obviously strong, but also support, to Cassie's point, some fundamental limits on abortion. I fundamentally agree with bans on third trimester abortions.
Yeah. God, he's so weak. God,
unbelievably weak. It's embarrassing. I'm sorry. I totally misread what that video was supposed to be. I thought there was going to be a heated debate. I didn't know there was going to be a pathetic little coward on that panel who was supposed to counter the insane deception and lies coming from that Trump lunatic. By the way, Donald Trump, who advocated for the executions of the Central Park Five after DNA evidence cleared them of any wrongdoing. After it exonerated them, he wanted to execute them anyway. That's your pro-life hero? Is that your pro-life hero?
Yeah, so she said in the first clip that that Democrats advocate for, quote, abortion beyond the birth of the child. What is an abortion beyond the birth? That's just a person. There is no, you can't abort something if it's beyond the birth. Why are we having this conversation? Look, Fox News is filled to the rim with liars and lunatics. There is no abortion beyond birth. That's just a person. That's so obviously a lie. That's so obviously the rantings of a lunatic mind. But now we've all come to accept it because everything's 50-50. Well, you know, the sane people say this and the insane people say that. And I can't tell. There is no abortion beyond birth by definition. Honestly, if you're a right winger and you're on her side and you think what she said is true, I genuinely feel bad for you because you have no ability to think at all. Like, oh yeah, well, you know what, that boy, he was aborted, 16 years beyond birth. Oh, that guy was killed 20 years beyond birth, and that was an abortion. Yeah. What are you talking about?
Coming from the pro-death penalty party, okay? Coming from individuals who, again, I can't stress this enough. We can't allow short memory spans to put us in a disadvantage right now. We're dealing with a pandemic that has subsided a little bit. Hundreds of thousands of Americans who didn't need to die died because her party, people like Donald Trump, decided to make masks a culture war issue. The same people who want to be all up in your uterus and decide what you can and can't do with it are the same ones who were losing their minds over having to put a piece of cloth over their freaking ugly faces. Oh, I can't breathe. How many videos did we see of Trump supporters at grocery stores or retail stores or just out in public hyperventilating over having to briefly and temporarily put a goddamn mask on? But they think that a woman shouldn't have agency over her own body because they allegedly want to protect zygotes and fetuses. But the second that baby's born, no mandatory family leave, no child care, nothing, no support. Oh, are you poor because your wages have been stagnant since the 1970s? Too bad. We want to cut funding for food stamps. We want to cut the social safety net. make sure that our rich buddies save $1 or $2 in taxes. That's how pro-life they are. There are kids living on the streets right now as we speak. In Texas, they have an issue with an underfunded foster care system. So they say, oh, well, if you can't afford the kid, I mean, you just give it up for adoption, as if that's not a traumatic thing to do after carrying that fetus to term for 9 months. But then what? You're gonna just put it in the system that you've underfunded intentionally because you want rich donors to save $1 or $2 in taxes? That's who this party is. That's who that woman is. She doesn't care about people's lives. This is all a fun little game for her.
Yeah, it was a study that proved conclusively that hundreds of thousands of Americans died because they did not get vaccinated. Fox News right-wingers told you not to get vaccinated. They killed hundreds of thousands of people with the wrong information. Were they pro-life then? No, they didn't care at all. It's all a way to control you because they just need that power.